So today we're going to explore a frozen waterfall. So this morning we're going to put a couple principles that I've talked about before in past videos to practice. One, we're going to talk about practicing locally. Where I'm at right now, this is a local metro park, just opened up, about 2 months ago or so, maybe, something like that. So I've never been here, never been to this particular set of falls. So we're going to take a look at that. And two, we're going to practice finding your shot. Because this is a new place where I've talked about it, how do you find your shot? How do you find your composition? Well, we're going to do that. So this is, again, a great example of what you can do even when you're close to home. This is great practice before, if I ever make it to a awesome destination of frozen waterfalls, I'm going to get to practice locally, learn my camera settings, find out what works, find out what doesn't work, everything like that locally while it's easy to correct and anything like that. So yeah, let's get to it. So here we are at the falls. I did a little bit of scouting around just to sort of find my shot. I'm probably gonna do just a little bit more before I set up my big tripod and everything like that. You got these trees over here which sort of obscure the right side of the falls if you try to shoot it from the base of the steps. We do have frozen creek running through here. Pretty frozen solid. You can see where the water runs through the center of it. It's a little thinner over there with the water motion. Pretty sweet falls, nice and wide, a little bit of water running behind it. We'll probably shoot some wide angle shots of it today and maybe see if I can get something cool with a zoom and some of the detail pictures on that. But I think my composition is over here with a really big wide angle in this little copse of trees, and then find my way over this way to get another wide angle shot, and then probably get a telephoto shot in there as well and see what that looks like. So this place is like 20 minutes from home, and it really goes to show the importance of practicing locally. Here in Ohio, we've had sub-freezing temperatures, not sub-zero, but sub-freezing temperatures for 4, 5, 6 days, barely hitting 30 on yesterday. Today, I think it's supposed to be pretty cold too. So you get these frozen waterfalls. There's actually a couple metro parks in the area, all within 25, 30 minutes. So, that value of practicing locally, I can just pop out here, practice some frozen waterfall photography so that if I end up in a destination location with expansive frozen waterfalls, I already have a head start onto where I'm going to want my camera settings, what kind of filters I should be using, and things like that. So never discount the importance of practicing locally. So like I said, we're going to play with this frozen waterfall and see what we get. So I think actually my detail shots, if you can still see me in here, I think my detail shots would be over here in this copse of trees because I can get in nice and close, get the zoom on, and get right in on where this water's flowing behind the falls. So I think that'll work really well for the detailed shots. I thought I'd shoot them over here to the left, but I think they'll work better over there. So I think there's a wide and a detail over there. Ice is a little thin up that way as we move towards the falls, but I'm pretty sure I can make it over. So we're going to start with a wide angle lens. We're going to start with a 14 by 30. I'm going to set up over this direction. We'll turn and we'll start working on that. Try to get that composition lined up. Not starting with the filter. I will probably end up with maybe a polarizing filter. There's not much sun. Not even sure I need it, but we'll probably just play with it. So again, I have the options. Again, the value of getting out, practicing locally. Play with things, experiment, because it's close. It's easy to do, and you can figure it out for those destination trips. Okay, so we're sitting over here on the far side of the falls, across a little frozen creek. I've got my 14 to 30 on here right now. Nice set of frozen waterfalls. I got a little bit of distraction in the foreground here that we may clean up in Photoshop. Not sure it adds to the picture, but a pretty decent shot on the falls. A little different than a lot of the other ones I've seen around here, which tend to be from that side of the shore. Obviously being frozen makes it a little easier to get to this side. So watching the histogram, of course, on this shot, sitting at ISO 100, no filters at the moment, f11, shutter speed 1/3, self timer on, again, about 24 millimeters. Falls is frozen pretty nicely. Take a peek at this on the back of the camera. Sort of want to zoom in, check my detail. There's lots of detail in that falls. Getting a little bit of motion blur on the water that's running behind it. You probably won't be able to pick it up unless you know it's there. Yeah, pretty cool. I'm gonna check this focus point. I like it. Histogram's looking good. Dropped my shutter speed up, brought it up to 1/4 just because I was really close with all this white and everything when the highlights. I'm a little concerned of going too far to that side, so I did increase the shutter speed just a touch. I'm gonna zoom in on it a bit, bring this up to 30 millimeters, make the falls fill the frame just a little more. All my settings stay the same. ISO 100, f11, 1/4 shutter speed. Looks good. I'm going to toss a polarizing filter on this just to see what that does. So let's toss that on. We're going to see what the polarizer does. Again, value of practicing locally. Yeah, so we're going to shoot portrait mode again for here. We'll switch it back to landscape. I want to play over here in this copse of trees with another wide shot, a little closer to the falls, and then I'll switch into a zoom to get some telephoto of the detail happening over there. The advantage of polarizer is I do get to slow my shutter down a little bit, so if I can see that water in there, it'll get the nice little blur effect. So yeah, I'm not sure how much effect this polarizer is having, other than letting me slow my shutter speed down, which is fine. Don't mind that at all. But I'm not sure how much glare. Like I said, it's a very overcast day, so there's not like a lot of sun bouncing off of anything. It's a very soft, even light all throughout. So, you know, I don't think polarizer is doing much more than letting me just slow the shutter speed. You know, it hit me for about a stop. Still at f11, ISO 100, let me drop my shutter speed down to 1/3. I like that. Still in the 30mm range. And we're gonna swap into landscape mode on this. We're gonna keep it at 30mm. Today I'm feeling that the landscape mode's the right way to shoot this. You've seen me shoot waterfalls down in Hocking Hills. A lot of those falls are they're more vertical oriented or narrower. This is a wide falls, as you've seen. So because of the wideness, I really think the wide angle lens is doing this more favors than not. So I am liking the compositions more in wide. You never know though when I get it home. Got this branch in the way. Super tempted to move it, but I've sort of a leave no trace, don't touch, don't change. So it's just gonna stay there. I'll actually scoot forward a little bit and get a shot where it's not in it as well. Since we've got the big wide angle on, I'm pretty sure I can pull that off too. So again, practice no trace. We talked about that in the responsible photography video. You know, it's not our place to go change and move and things like that. It's you take the environment as it is and work with it, work around it. Okay, so we're very gingerly gonna work our way up. I got this branch in the foreground. If I move forward a little bit, I can get it out. We're gonna continue to play a little bit with the wide angles on this side before we bounce over here, do a wide angle or two from that direction, as well as a couple detail shots. So if I fall in, I guess this will make for great video content, right? Okay, nice. So I moved up just a little closer to the falls here. The only thing I wasn't really liking in that last composition was I had this dead branch here laying across the ice. So now what I've done, since I'm on such a wide angle lens right now, the 14-30, I'm moving forward, so now that won't be in my frame. I'm liking the quick look I got at back of the camera. I like my angle. Again, most of the pictures I see from here are taken from over on at the base of the steps. And you know, admittedly, usually unless you're down here in a water boots or something, this is probably a creek, harder to get through, things like that. Since it's frozen, it's letting me move around a little more, things like that, get some interesting compositions. It is a reminder if I come back and visit when it's not frozen, a set of water boots or something like that would be a good thing to have, because I think that's where all the real good compositions here are. So we're gonna play with this wide angle shot. I'll play with a couple different focal lengths and then we'll bounce over there. Bump my f-stop up to f16. Just let me slow my shutter just a touch more in case there's water behind the falls. It wants to do something interesting. I'll have what I think is a slightly better shutter speed. Polarizer still on, getting a few wides here. Big advantage, that branch is not in my way. Zooming out 16mm, it's sort of nice because what the 16 gets, so it's been a couple nice compositions. You know, the 24s, the 30s got me nice right in on the falls, you get the detail, everything like that. But to get the whole picture, you know, with the little canyon gorge, quarry wall over here and the quarry wall over here, pulling back starts to give you that picture more, and then it gives you this expansive snow and the pool of water in front. So there's several shots I've been happy with so far. We'll see what they look like in post-processing. But okay, so I've got my compositions here. I've done some landscapes and portrait. I've adjusted my distance forward and back. A lot of that was for foreground elements that I didn't really want in the scene, so I moved a little closer to the falls to help knock those foreground elements out. Predominantly, it's been a forward and back change in composition, but I sort of like what I've got so far. Can't spend all morning here this morning, so you know, sort of working through the shots. And from my initial sort of finding my shot, looking around, this is this area in the side I want. I can always come back and get some other shots. We are going to bounce over here into this copse of trees. This is over on the side. I see most of the photos from this place happen, though they're usually further back. So I'm going to sort of work my way up into this copse of trees. We're going to do another set of wide angles on the falls to get those shots, and then we're going to pop a telephoto, my legendary 24-200 on, so we can get some detailed shots, because like I said, there is running water behind the frozen part of the falls, which is pretty awesome. So we'll pop that on, get a couple of those detailed shots, and then we should be calling it a day. So I'm going to head over there. So we're gonna come up here, try to find a good angle. Get my tripod centered up here, stabled. This all lined up. See what we see on the back of the camera here. This is where a wide angle really shines. Let me come get you. Okay, so we've moved over to the right-hand side of the falls in this little copse of trees. Still in the wide angle because I had to get pretty close to the falls. I'm like almost right at the edge of the pool of water. I already looked at the back of the camera. I like the composition. Again, so many of the pictures I see are back here. So I'm just imagining that when the water's running, this must be more in the water or more trees and leaves or something, because this angle is still good, especially with the wide angle. I'm out at about a 20 millimeter focal length. We're just gonna work through the settings here real quick. Still got the polarizer on. I don't think it's hurting anything. So yeah, so hanging around 20 millimeters, camera settings, watching the histogram. The sky is on the edge of blowing out here. It's sort of a gray sky, so not super worried about losing too much detail. There's not a lot up there anyways. So ISO 100, f16, 1/3 shutter stop, polarizer still on. I'm gonna grab a few landscape images at different focal lengths. Yeah, I can zoom all the way out about 18 millimeters. Do need to speed my shutter up because I'm getting more white in the background, so I'm down to 1/4. But even this close to the falls, I can zoom out all the way to like 18 millimeters and still keep my foreground pretty clear. You can't even tell I'm in this little copse of trees, so pretty cool. Take a peek at that one, how it came out. Okay, one more like that. Then we're gonna do the opposite. We're gonna zoom in, play with different focal lengths. So finding the right focal length, the right zoom, the right amount of zoom, I think sort of critical to the picture and how successful it is. I think there's an element where you can be zoomed at it just the wrong, where the falls is filling the frame, but there's no context. And I think that makes for a weaker image. Whereas you pull back a little bit and you start to get the contrast of the walls and things like that. I think that paints the better story. I'm taking a couple of the ones where it's just the falls, just to have them again. Sometimes you get home, you don't know what it's gonna look like. But I do think there's a portion of the zoom where the story's sort of lost and all you've got is just this, what are you trying to show me? Frozen water, and it's just not quite as good. Now with that said, I think once you sort of leave that no man's land, which is what we're gonna try with some of the detail shots where you're super zoomed in onto the detail, things can be strong again. But I do think there's a no man's land in your zoom where you're zoomed in and losing some of the story. Though once you cross that no man's land, you're into like increased amount of detail that is back to telling a story or something that people don't normally look at and see. So I think that's important when you're out, practicing, is play with those different zooms to see where is it, but just be aware of that, what I think is a no man's land where you're zoomed in and there's just no context to give you a story, and just watch out for that. And it takes playing and practicing to figure out what you think that is, and really that's what you think. What I think is a no man's land, other people may not, so it's sort of subjective, and it's you as the creator, the artist, to sort of figure that out. But that's what the practice is for. What to you tells the story. I'm going to swap out the wide angle 14 to 30. I'm going to switch over my 24-200. I'm going to go ahead and put the polarizer on because some of the detail I want is actually this, where the water is running behind the falls. So we're going to toss the polarizer on. I think it hasn't hurt anything at all once I put it on earlier. So we'll get that going. And yeah, we'll get a few detail shots and we'll wrap it up, and we'll go from there. Okay, so I've swapped over to my 24-200. I did put the polarizer on it. We're doing some super zoomed in shots here. So what I've got is the water is flowing straight down through the falls behind the frozen bits. It is starting to warm up here in Ohio, so there's still some running water. I imagine this probably won't be super frozen here in another couple days. Anyway, so I'm in portrait mode because what I want to accentuate the story I want to tell is the water falling down, so I want it to fall down through the frame. And so we're just sort of zoomed in. 24-200, I'm only about 100. Again, trying to tell a little bit of the story. We're going to play with different focal lengths because I'm not sure which one's going to tell the story I want to, so I'll get a couple just so I have some safety in numbers. Like I said, ISO 100, f16, shutter speed 1/4. I am going to check the water blur on this. That's trying to figure out what I want it to do. Oh, actually, that's not too bad. It's got just a bit of blur, but you can tell there's a little bit of water back there. Actually, I'm going to go the opposite just for fun, and I'm going to bring my aperture down and see how much of that water I can freeze, since the rest of the falls is already frozen. So we're going to go down like f6.3, which is because this 2400, it's a variable zoom from f4 to 6.3. So because of where I'm zoomed out at, the lowest aperture I can go to is 6.3. So we're going to use that. Watch my histogram so we can speed the shutter up a good amount. Get my shutter speed at 1/130th. We'll take this picture. Again, this is what I started wondering was, since the falls is frozen, would the moving water and be more interesting. So we'll see. Okay, so that experiment of speeding the shutter up, it didn't get the look what I looked for because it was freezing the water. It actually made everything look frozen, so you really couldn't even tell there was moving water back there. So I've switched back to trying to get the motion blur of the water to see if it's out there. I've actually bumped up to an aperture f22. Watching the histogram gets me to a half-second shutter speed. I think this look will be a little better. Cool, just take a peek, make sure, like I said, I kicked my aperture up, so I just want to make sure it's doing what I think it is. It is, I do like that better. So I've got several at that focal length. Now we're just gonna play focal length, zoom in, zoom out, and just play. We'll see what we get. It won't all be good, but again, value of practicing is you play, you get a chance to play it close to home, nothing to be lost, and only knowledge to be gained from all this. Okay, so that wraps it up for us today. Again, it was a great time out photographing frozen waterfalls, and I think it just shows the importance of practicing locally. Here I was, local, like 20-25 minutes from my house, able to get in a frozen waterfall. Get out there, practice, play, see what works, what doesn't. It'll just make me more successful on some large destination trip. And again, finding your shot. This is my first time at this particular waterfall, and so I sort of tried to show you how I approach that. When you get here, it's not break out the camera equipment right away and start photographing. It's put your stuff down, walk around, look, see, start to play in your compositions, and then start playing. Then get the gear out, set the tripods up, and start, finding your shot and going from there. So another great morning out. Like I said, photographing the frozen waterfalls was great. I'll put links to that practicing locally and finding your shot video down in the description. So if you want to see the full length versions of those, drop down in that description and you can watch those videos as well. And again, if you like today's video, please hit that like button. And if you want to see future landscape photography content from me, which includes gear reviews, behind the scenes like this, and tips and tricks, click the subscribe button so you don't miss any content from me. And thank you for watching.